John Lennon. On the evening of December 8, 1980, John Lennon returned to the Dakota, the Gothic apartment building on Manhattan's Upper West Side he had called home for years. He had spent the day recording, given a magazine interview, and that afternoon had done something most celebrities would not do. He stopped, took a fan's album, and signed it. The fan's name was Mark David Chapman. A photographer captured the moment, Lennon leaning over, pen in hand, Chapman watching. It was 5 in the afternoon. What the photograph cannot show is what Chapman was carrying in his coat, or what he had already decided to do before he ever handed Lennon the record. He waited outside the Dakota for nearly 6 hours. At 10:50 that evening, Lennon walked through the archway entrance of his own building. Chapman fired 5 shots from a .38 caliber revolver. 4 struck Lennon in the back. He staggered into the lobby and collapsed. He was pronounced dead at Roosevelt Hospital from massive blood loss. Chapman did not run. He sat on the pavement, retrieved The Catcher in the Rye from his coat, and was reading it when police arrived. The man Lennon had been kind to that afternoon had spent the hours since planning his murder.
John McAfee. John McAfee built a fortune in software, spent decades dismantling his own reputation, and died in a Spanish prison cell on June 23, 2021, hours after a court authorized his extradition to the United States on federal tax evasion charges. The official ruling was suicide by hanging. McAfee had publicly insisted for years he would never kill himself. He had gone further than words. He had tattooed the word "whacked" on his arm as a permanent declaration. The timing was precise enough to raise questions that have never been answered. The extradition order came through in the morning. By evening, McAfee was dead. His legal team disputed the ruling immediately. His wife maintained he had been murdered. Whether the death was self-inflicted or not, the circumstances produced exactly the ending McAfee had spent years predicting, and the tattoo on his arm ensured the argument would outlast him indefinitely. Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers walked into the Yorkville Endoscopy Clinic on August 28, 2014 for a routine outpatient throat procedure. She was 80 years old, still performing sold-out shows, still recording television. She had no reason to believe the appointment would be anything other than a minor inconvenience. The procedure that followed was not minor. A decision made while she was under sedation had not been authorized. A physician performed a biopsy on Rivers' vocal cords, not approved, not part of the plan. Her throat swelled. Her oxygen supply was cut off. Rivers went into cardiac arrest on the table and was rushed to Mount Sinai Hospital, placed in a medically induced coma. She died on September 4, 2014, after her family removed life support. A routine appointment had killed her. The clinic later surrendered its operating license to the state of New York. Chris Benoit. On June 24, 2007, police conducted a welfare check at a home in Fayetteville, Georgia, after Chris Benoit failed to appear at a WWE pay-per-view without explanation. What they found inside ended any possibility of one. Benoit's wife Nancy was dead. Their 7-year-old son Daniel was dead. Benoit himself was dead, having used the pulley system of a weight machine to end his own life. The murders had unfolded across an entire weekend. Post-mortem examination of Benoit's brain reframed everything. The damage resembled that of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. Benoit was 40. The condition was chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, from years of head trauma in a wrestling ring. Whether the diagnosis explains what he did or merely contextualizes it is a question medicine and law have never resolved. His name was erased from WWE records. O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson died on April 10, 2024, at his Las Vegas home from prostate cancer. He was 76. The cause of death was entirely ordinary. Almost nothing else about the final 30 years of his life had been. In 1994, his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman were found stabbed to death outside her Los Angeles home. Simpson was arrested and tried in the most-watched criminal proceeding in American television history. A jury acquitted him in 1995. A civil court found him liable the following year, ordering $33 million in damages. He moved to Florida, where state law shielded his assets. He played golf. He maintained his innocence until the end. He died at home from natural causes, having never been imprisoned for the deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. Their families were alive to read his obituary. Anna Nicole Smith. Anna Nicole Smith was found unresponsive in her hotel room at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel in Hollywood, Florida on February 8, 2007. She was 39 years old. The autopsy cataloged the contents of her system: 9 different prescription medications, chloral hydrate, multiple benzodiazepines, and other sedatives. The medical examiner ruled accidental overdose. The accumulation of substances had simply stopped her breathing while she slept. 5 months before her death, Smith's 20-year-old son Daniel had died in the same hospital where she had just given birth to her daughter from a combination of methadone and antidepressants. She had been photographed at his bedside holding her newborn, sitting beside his body. People who knew her said she never recovered from that day. The official cause of her death was accidental. The actual cause is harder to name with clinical precision.
John Belushi checked into Bungalow 3 at the Chateau Marmont in early March 1982. He was 33 and deep inside a period of drug use that alarmed the people around him. On the night of March 4th, a woman named Kathy Smith injected him with a speedball, combined cocaine and heroin. Smith left the bungalow in the early morning hours. She was among the last people to see Belushi alive.
A friend found him unresponsive at midday on March 5th, acute cocaine and heroin intoxication. Smith fled to Canada, returned to face charges, and served 15 months for involuntary manslaughter. In the days before his death, both Robert De Niro and Robin Williams had visited Belushi at that bungalow. Both left visibly disturbed by what they found inside. Neither spoke about it publicly for years. Phil Hartman went to sleep in his Encino home on the night of May 27, 1998, and did not wake up. His wife, Bryn Omdahl, shot him 3 times while he slept. Omdahl had spent the evening consuming alcohol, cocaine, and a prescribed antidepressant at a friend's house. She returned home in the early morning hours. What happened between her return and the shooting has never been fully reconstructed. After shooting Hartman, Omdahl confessed to a friend who didn't believe her. They returned together. The friend saw the body and called police. By the time officers arrived, Omdahl had locked herself in the bedroom and shot herself. The Hartmans' 2 children were asleep in the house during both shootings. Hartman was 49. He was due to begin rehearsals for a new television project the following week. L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard died January 24, 1986, in a luxury motorhome on a California ranch. He was 74 and had suffered a stroke 5 days earlier. He had not appeared in public for years. The Church of Scientology announced his death with a statement explaining he had voluntarily departed his body to continue research on a higher spiritual plane. No independent medical examination was conducted before what came next. His body was cremated within 24 hours. The speed of the cremation, combined with the isolation of his final years, produced questions the Church has never adequately addressed. His will had not been updated in years. He had been effectively unreachable by the outside world. The organization he built continues operating globally. The precise circumstances of his final days remain, by deliberate design, unverifiable. Charles Manson. Charles Manson died November 19, 2017, in a Bakersfield hospital. Cardiac arrest following respiratory failure. He was 83. He had been incarcerated since 1971, serving 9 consecutive life sentences for conspiracy in the 1969 Tate LaBianca murders. He applied for parole 12 times and was denied 12 times. He died in custody, having outlived several prosecutors and witnesses who had built the case against him. The dispute over his remains outlasted most ordinary funerals. Eventually claimed by a grandson, he was cremated. His ashes were scattered at a deliberately secret location, chosen specifically to prevent his grave becoming a pilgrimage site for the people who had spent decades writing him letters, sending gifts, and in some cases requesting his hand in marriage from his cell in Corcoran State Prison. Jimmy Savile. Jimmy Savile died at his Leeds home on October 29, 2011, at 84. He was mourned as a beloved entertainer and philanthropist, knighted by the Queen, a fixture of British television for decades. His funeral drew large crowds. His headstone in Scarborough was elaborate, bearing an inscription he had composed himself. Not one word spoken in tribute at his funeral reflected what his life had actually contained. 13 months later, an ITV documentary broadcast testimony from women who said Savile had abused them. The investigation became one of the largest posthumous inquiries in British history. The final count exceeded 500 victims, spanning 6 decades, ranging in age from 5 to 75. His headstone was destroyed by his own family. His grave was filled with concrete. He had died celebrated for things that had never been real. Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez was found dead in his Massachusetts prison cell on April 19, 2017. He was 27, hanging by a bedsheet tied to a window. He was serving life without parole for the 2013 murder of Odin Lloyd, a semi-professional footballer dating the sister of Hernandez's fiancée.
3 days before his death, he had been acquitted of 2 additional murders. The acquittal changed nothing about his sentence. Post-mortem examination found stage 3 CTE, the most severe ever documented in a person his age, typically seen in people decades older. Hernandez had played professional football from 22, signed a $40 million contract in 2012, and committed murder 5 months later. The brain making those decisions was, according to neuropathologists who examined it, already significantly and irreversibly compromised before any of it happened. Sid Vicious. Sid Vicious died February 2, 1979 in a Greenwich Village apartment. He was 21. The cause was heroin overdose. The specific details separating his death from a straightforward account of addiction, according to multiple reports, the heroin that killed him was provided by his own mother, Ann Beverly, obtained to celebrate his release from Rikers Island, where he had been held for the alleged murder of Nancy Spungen. Spungen had been found stabbed in their Chelsea hotel bathroom in October 1978. Vicious said he had no memory of that night. The charges were pending when the overdose killed him. He died at a party thrown in his honor, surrounded by people celebrating his freedom. His mother later scattered his ashes over Spungen's grave in Pennsylvania. Given what she reportedly provided him that night, that gesture resists easy interpretation. Oscar Wilde died November 30th, 1900, in a cheap Paris boarding house. He was 46. 5 years earlier, he had been the most celebrated playwright in London. Then, the Marquess of Queensberry accused him publicly of sodomy. Wilde sued for criminal libel. The case collapsed. The evidence it produced was used to prosecute Wilde himself. He was convicted of gross indecency and sentenced to 2 years of hard labor. The imprisonment destroyed his health, finances, and marriage. Released in 1897, he spent his remaining years in Europe under the name Sebastian Melmoth, largely in poverty. He converted to Catholicism on his deathbed. The cause of death was meningitis from an untreated ear infection sustained during imprisonment. His final reported words were a remark about the wallpaper, that one of them had to go. He was the one who went.